Hello, my name is Laurel Rutledge. I am the CEO of LaurelRutledge.com, the creator of the Rutledge Perspective podcast, and now I am the host of the Rutledge Perspective on KCOH-TV, The Boost, and I am so excited. My background in human resources and also in business and consulting has given me the opportunity to share information with all of you, and what we're going to do is talk about the foundational pieces, whether or not you're building a business or you're building a career. It all comes down to strategy and people. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know who needs to be on your team? So please join me, join in the conversation, catch the show both on the radio, on the app, and also on Facebook. And I will be on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you there. Good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, and we are here. It's rainy in Houston, but it's cool. Thank you, Jesus. We got a relief from the heat, and I just love Tuesdays. I'm so glad to be here with Jerry P. Beasley.
Thank you.
And so we'll start again with some PSAs, but we're going to talk about good and necessary trouble today. And I posted about that on Monday, but we're going to talk about that today. So the first thing is, there aren't any primaries today. The next primaries that are coming are on August the 4th, Tuesday, August the 4th. And that's Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and Washington State. So I hope all of you guys are all registered for that you're ready, that you have studied, that you know what's on your state primary, who's on your state primary, and if there's other stuff that's on your ballot at that time, that you are ready for that. Please still fill out your census. That is important to do because it determines our representation. So you want to make sure that you are counted. And there is no citizenship question on the census. Although I believe there's some shady stuff going on around the scenes, but but not on the census. So, but there are a couple of other things that have come up over the week that I wanted to address as well in terms of some public service announcements. So we are now getting to the end of July, and that additional $600 of unemployment, that additional benefit that came through the stimulus package, is supposed to end July 31st, which means I believe the last check that people would get that extra money would be the July 25th check, I believe. I have not seen anything that says they are going to extend that yet. I actually checked this morning before I came here. So I'm not sure. There's a lot of talk about it. A lot of people are trying to figure out if they're going to extend it or if they're not. So just know to pay attention. I did get some information also on Texas Workforce Commission. So forgive me for those of y'all not in Texas. Initially, you were not having to be looking for a job to get unemployment. And then they said, good morning, Odessa. Thank you. I love it too because it's got wine names on it.
Germany.
Good morning, Germany.
Washington, D.C.
And Washington, D.C.
And St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, I tell you what, I'm so glad to have you here. So you die hard. I love that. And so with Texas, they decided you didn't have to work during the first part of the pandemic. You didn't have to be looking for a job. But then they reinstated that, and then they unreinstated it again. So, good morning, Nancy. Longview. So, just start paying attention to the Texas Workforce Commission. They are being really good about posting information in a timely manner. So, make sure you are following the Texas Workforce Commission if you're in Texas, because you need to know if you're getting unemployment, if you're going to have to be proven that you're actually looking for new employment if your job is gone and you're getting unemployment benefits. The other thing is that there was an extension of the amount of unemployment, the number of weeks of unemployment that you could get. So if it was regular unemployment, it was extended to 59 weeks, and those on pandemic unemployment, that was moved from 39 weeks to 46 weeks. However, again, with all of this stuff happening, are these extensions going to stay? So I just want to encourage you guys, if you or if someone you know is getting some additional benefit, they're getting unemployment, they've applied for unemployment, they're getting the PPP to cover the payroll for their businesses, any of those kind of things, I encourage you to encourage them to please pay attention and check the official sites to see what the new rules are and to see if they're changing. Because I don't want anyone to get caught unaware and end up with fines or other issues just because they didn't know. Because unfortunately, ignorance is no excuse. So just because you didn't know isn't going to get you out of that fine. However, as Adrian and I have said a number of times, if you can just be consistent and document what you're doing, at least if you're consistently wrong, maybe your fine will be a little bit less because you just treated everybody the same way. You were just wrong. So just really pay attention to that stuff. That's really, really important. And as I said last week, if you have a business, no matter what size, also make sure you are paying attention to any notices that come through for unemployment, because of a colleague of mine, Jennifer, who received an unemployment claim, and she is a sole proprietor. She has no employees. So the claim was fraudulent, but what she doesn't know is, was the claim executed by someone who was also committing identity theft, or was it some other kind of mistake? So just make sure you're paying attention to all that stuff. Check your mail. I'm really bad about that. Check your mail on a regular basis. Because I figure, am I really getting anything important? So I don't always check my mail regularly. So if you're sending me something, text me, send me an email, something, say, go check your mail. Okay. So the other thing is, coming at the end of August, and good morning, Houston. Coming at the end of August, I'm going to be putting on a summit. At least that's what the plan is right now. And the summit is going to be a deep dive on the freebie that's on my website about the 5 biggest mistakes leaders make in building their dream team. And it's going to be the 5 things you need to know, the 5 secrets to building your dream team. And I'm going to do a deep dive on each of those 5 secrets for 5 days. So that's going to be coming at the end of August. I'll be putting out information on that. I may also do something in between, just because I like spending time with y'all. So I'll be talking to you about that. And also my online platform, I'm adding some more stuff probably in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be pushing that out too for anybody who does not have HR but needs some HR help. It is an online self-service portal that has some downloadable stuff. It has videos and those kind of things. So I'll get that information out as well. Be sure to follow me. You can follow me on Facebook. For the HR piece, you can follow me on The Resource by LKR. If it's really kind of personal advisory stuff, you can follow me on the Rutledge Perspective. So let's talk about today's topic, which is good and necessary trouble. So, it's been a tough month or two, Jerry. It's just been between COVID and George Floyd and now all this stuff going on in Oregon. Are you seeing that? All this stuff in Oregon?
Yes.
Just insane. It is just insane. And so it's a lot. It's a lot. And so I found myself this weekend, as usual, really reflective and trying to figure out, what I want to do and how I want to do it, and trying to get my mind right and all that kind of stuff that we all have to do. Whether we're running our own businesses or just in a department, you really have to work on you. And so then I saw the news about John Lewis's passing.
Yeah.
Whew. And it just hit me funny. And so as I started reading about him again and seeing everything posted and saw his quote that I actually posted as well, about not being afraid to make good trouble, not being afraid to make, necessary trouble. And I kept hearing that in my head, good and necessary trouble, good and necessary trouble, good and necessary trouble. And I couldn't figure out why it just kept coming up. And then I realized, when we talk about good and necessary trouble, when he was speaking of not being afraid to make those big leaps and take those chances, he was speaking mostly about those big systemic sociological issues, the big constructs that were in the way at the time of how we operated and how we maneuvered through every day. And yet, when I started thinking about it, it also very directly applies to your business or to your career. How you make good and necessary trouble. And as I started thinking about it, and you guys can hear more on my podcast this week too, that comes out tomorrow, I really started thinking about my career and the people that supported me and were around me. And then the other people, the other leaders that I had the pleasure of supporting over years. And the challenges that many of them had, especially if you are in any way in a marginalized population. Whether you are a person of color, whether you are a woman, whether you are someone with a disability, whether you are someone with a different sexual orientation that is public about that sexual orientation, whether you're a transgender, any box that can be checked that can be considered quote unquote other. You have at some time been in battle, and I use battle intentionally. You've been in battle, and you have had to potentially make some trouble. Mm-hmm. Because nothing changes if nothing changes. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to speak truth to power, which we've talked about on a number of occasions, then nothing changes. And one of the things we talk about here on the Rutledge perspective is if you change your perspective, you can change your circumstances. And so when I started thinking about making good and necessary trouble, I started thinking about the conversations that I've had with people over the years. And I started thinking about the situations that have occurred over the years when someone was passed over for a promotion, when someone was given a bad review, all of these kind of things. I actually saw a posting, saw a posting yesterday, a military person who said, I think it may have been on LinkedIn, who said, I just got a call from someone who very empathetically told me that I was not going to get promoted. This person's in the Air Force, I believe. I was not going to get promoted to E7. And forgive me, all of my veterans, forgive me, please, because I have a hard time knowing what all of the levels are. So forgive me my ignorance. I will work on that. He was not going to get promoted to this E7 level, which I believe was a sergeant, he said later in the posting. And he said, you know, the people that were making this decision had a piece of paper that talked about me and my experience. And they somehow made a decision that I was either not ready, I didn't have the capabilities. And he said this was the 4th time in a row that I had been passed over for this particular promotion. And he said, and at first it started bothering me that these people were making this decision on my capability and whether or not I was going to get this promotion, which also had additional money associated with it, based on not really even talking to me and not really knowing details of me. He said, but then I started thinking, they really don't know me. They don't know I lost my daughter this year. My daughter passed away this year. I was a TED speaker this year. I started a business this year that gives back. And he started listing all of these little things. And he said, so I'm not going to let their decision about my capability and my worth stop me from living my greater purpose. I'm going to keep telling the truth. I'm going to keep speaking truth to power, right? All of these things. And so when I saw that this morning, I said, see, that's just another God wink about we need to be talking about good trouble and necessary trouble. Because that means when you are sitting in those meetings, or when you see something that occurs, if you see something, say something. There was another thing that happened, and Maxine Waters did this too. Saw somebody stopped on the side of the road, and she went to see what was going on. Stopped her car, pulled on the side, and went to see what was going on. There was another story that was posted yesterday about a couple that was driving down the highway and saw these 3 young men that had been pulled over by police. And there were a few police cars that had pulled them over. 3 African-American men, and it seemed like they were like in their late teens, early 20s. And they saw this happening, and something in them just said, we don't know. They actually pulled off the highway, turned all the way around, came back up, and pulled behind the car. And they said, the police officer came back and said, you know, is something wrong? And they said, no, we're just here in support of these kids. And they said, well, are you family? And they said, no. And they were recording. They had their phones out to record, right? They wanted to get everything documented. And they said the police officer finally, you know, went away, and they let the kids go. And they followed these kids to, I think it was a gas station or something, and started talking to them. And they were so grateful that this couple had pulled over just to be there and just to witness, because they were afraid that something else was going to go down. They said they didn't know why they were stopped and all of these kind of things. And who knows what the situation was. But the point being, good and necessary trouble. That couple decided it was important, it was necessary for them to insert themselves in a situation that looked like it could potentially go wrong based on the experiences that they've had and what they have seen as of late. Maxine Waters did the same thing. I just saw it yesterday on the news. She pulled to stop by somebody who had been pulled over by police. There are people, there was a report this morning that it called it in Portland, the Wall of Moms. The Wall of Moms. And a woman through social media got all of these moms together, and she said, sometimes moms are discounted. People don't think we can do anything. Mm-hmm. But one thing we do as moms is protect our people.
That's right. And
so there was this line of all these moms with their arms locked protecting protesters. They said, no, you're not doing this. We are going to protect these people who are peacefully protesting against these federal officers, because what they are doing is inciting violence. Yeah. And so again, good and necessary trouble. They stood up, they saw something that was necessary. It's good trouble that they were creating, because this wall could escalate as well. But they saw something that needed to change and stepped up to help change it. And while it can be overwhelming to think, as we continue to peel back the onion, there's so much, and the systemic challenges are so deep that it can be discouraging. How in the heck are we going to fix anything? I had to catch that, Jerry. How are we going to fix anything because we're just one person, or it's just one layer? If you look at some of the systemic things that happened around housing, all of the guys coming back from the war and trying to get housing, and how that was intentionally segregated, and how that created generational wealth for one population and completely eliminated the opportunity for generational wealth for another population simply because of the color of their skin. Those kind of things are deep, deep, deep in the system. And so it can be overwhelming to say, well, what can I do? Well, you know what? You can do something. You can do something, because the one thing you do may make an impact on one person. That's one more person that needed you. Mm-hmm. So you may not be able to change the world, but you may be able to change the world for one person. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about good and necessary trouble, I also want you to think about your professional career or where you're involved with people. Often, when we're looking at organizations, especially now, and this is why I challenge leaders, especially now, and just like it happened in the recession in 2007, great leaders will shine forth in these challenging times. But bad leaders will get even worse during these times. Bad cultures will be revealed during these times. Misaligned words and actions will be revealed during these times. And
explain that part, misaligned words and actions.
When you say people are our greatest asset, but your actions are like, oh, you know what? You were 15 minutes late, and so we're just going to let you go. Mm-hmm. Words and actions, if people are your greatest asset, was there any kind of conversation? Did you find out what was going on? Really? What you doing? So when your words and actions are misaligned, that stuff starts to show up too when times are really, really tough. Mm-hmm. And so I always am pushing leaders now to say, this is the time for you to shine, and this is the time for you to step up. But this is also a time when you got to be really real about who you are and who your organization is. Because when we're talking about good and necessary trouble, and with the social unrest that's happening now, there are going to be more people who are willing to say something when they see something. And what is your response going to be? Because here's the deal. Those people who have been acting poorly all along have been given permission to do so. If no one's ever called them on it, if they've never been reprimanded, if there's never been any kind of discipline, those actions are telling them the behavior is okay. So again, misaligned actions and words. The words say we're going to treat people with dignity and respect. We're going to include people. We want diversity. And then you got this person that's treating everybody anyway but but you never do anything to correct that behavior, your words and your actions are misaligned. And your actions say, we're okay with that behavior. We're okay if you mistreat people. We're okay if you go into meetings and you yell at folks. We're okay if you pretend someone who didn't perform performed and someone who did perform didn't. We're okay with all of that because we're not going to call you on it, because it's easier for us to just let you go because that's just who you are. And so the organization has told the person it's okay to act that way. But it's just not. And what's going to happen is, as people get more and more confident in calling out what they see as discrepancies, calling out what they see as mistreatment, then those behaviors are going to get more and more thrown to the surface. And the challenge will be, then how are you going to respond? Now, if you are the person who's speaking truth to power, I'm going to tell you what I've said before. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Make a plan. Because if you're speaking this truth and this person has been exhibiting this forever, then there is some potential danger, just for lack of another word, to you, professional danger to you for speaking up. Will you get blackballed? Will you get sidelined? Will you get taken off a project? Might you be seen as insubordinate, especially people of color? Might you be seen as insubordinate, and then therefore there starts to be a performance issue with you? So you need to make a plan. And that plan should include, here's the stuff I see. I personally have observed this behavior. And it's got to be about behavior, not the person's character. Because once you start attacking character, it becomes emotional, and then you lose all credibility. So here's the behavior or the action that I personally have observed. Here is the impact of that action on the business, on me, on the team, on revenue, on whatever. Here's the impact. And here is what we need to do to fix that. And the reason I say you also need to make a plan is because at the end of that plan, the organization is going to make a decision about what action they're going to take, and then the ball is back in your court. Are you good with what they did? Are you not? If you start feeling like you're retaliated against, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to seek counsel? Are you going to claim retaliation? What are you going to do? And how do you make a plan so that you don't hurt you in your desire to speak truth to power and in your action? And that's why it's important to plan too, so that you're not in your feelings and not emotional, because it's business. The impact may be emotional, but the act has to be business. Just like I tell leaders, I need you to lead with your heart, but I need you to act with your head. Because if you're acting with your heart, you're going to miss a whole lot of stuff and potentially put yourself in a situation that is going to be hard to rectify because it's emotional. And that doesn't mean you can't be compassionate. It doesn't mean that you can't have emotions. But if you lead with emotions, especially in very tense situations, you are so much more readily dismissed. It is so much easier for people to just say, ugh, okay, they just need to calm down. It's not really that bad. It's easy to be dismissed when you're overly emotional. So if you'll think about, this is the example that I've been given, and I was like, oh, this is so right. Think about when you're talking to your kids, or think about when your parents were talking to you. They're yelling and screaming and all this kind of stuff, and you hear them, but you're kind of not paying attention. When they got quiet, or they got real close to you and like whispered in your ear, then you knew it was serious, right? So if you are overly emotional, it's easy for people to dismiss you. But when you get quiet, when you're not yelling and screaming, when you are calm, when you are focused, when you are clear, you send a message to other people that, yeah, I really mean this. This is what I mean. And this is where we are. And this is what I expect. And this is my position. And it's time for you to take me seriously. So it's really important, as you are thinking about what trouble you're going to make, that you're really clear on what it is, why it is, and what your plan is for afterwards. Because there's got to be a plan. There's got to be a plan. The lack of a plan puts you in even more jeopardy. Because then they have more control. Because you're not prepared.
Right. Because if you let it go on longer and longer, it's going to overboil, and you
Yes.
probably 9 times out of 10 didn't have the plan for that overboil.
Exactly.
when you should have been strategizing. It was said that a woman actually leaves a marriage 6 months prior to leaving the marriage because she's thinking of her plan, putting her money in the bank and saving this and saving that.
Right.
So if you feel the tension, you need to be planning in the midst of that. Yeah.
And you need to trust your gut.
Yeah.
You need to trust your gut and your instinct. And you need to, as we talked about here too, not only do we need to speak truth to power, we need to speak truth to ourselves. So you know your issues. You know if you're being overly sensitive. You know if that's a button for you. You know those things about you. So own those. Just own them. And then make a decision. You know what? But this is important enough to me that I'm going to say something anyway. And that's okay. It's okay. Just know that I am all about ensuring that everyone that listens to me understands the key is to be open, to be honest, and just to know and to plan. Because you have a choice. You have a choice. You can say nothing and just let things go. That is a choice. You can speak up. That is a choice. We are free to make choices. There are good choices, bad choices. There are, choices that really have no consequences at all. But we are not free from the outcomes or the consequences of the choices that we make. And so because we are not free from the consequences of the choices we make, it's important for us to plan. Now, you can't plan everything. Sometimes you just got to respond to stuff that's a surprise.
Right.
So just know that. But if we're talking about good and necessary trouble, that's really a place where you can normally make a plan because you have observed this kind of craziness over a period of time. It didn't just start happening. Very rarely do you see something in a business that just started that day. Very rarely.
Right.
There is, especially older businesses, that is culturally ingrained in the DNA. It's there. It's been there. It's going to be there until somebody says something, and enough people say something. Which leads me to the next thing I saw, which was Nita Mosby Tyler did a TED Talk. And she was talking about, she's an equity advocate, and she was also talking about speaking up and speaking truth to power. And one of the things she said was justice requires an accomplice. And I had to read that a couple of times because, again, in the context of good and necessary trouble, what does that mean? Justice requires an accomplice. And where it hit me was when you speak up and you speak truth to power and you are willing to make good and necessary trouble, it is helpful if you have an accomplice. That you're not the only one that saw that issue. You're not the only one that spoke up. And by the way, it's even more powerful if the person that's your accomplice has more pull than you. And that's about, as we've talked about, networking and relationships and building those that are authentic. Because when it's an authentic relationship and someone genuinely cares about your success as much as they care about their own, that behavior that you're seeing, they are seeing too.
But you do have to make sure they're going to speak up, because what about the scenario?
Absolutely.
You pull them in, and then all of a sudden you're out there.
They go ghost. Yeah.
That's happened.
And that has happened, and it happens a lot. And that's why I also say plan. Look, proper prior planning prevents poor performance. That also means plan B.
Yeah.
We're going in here. You got my back. I'm going to speak up. You're going to say something. If you're silent, I already have my plan B.
Oh, that's good.
Because people are people, and you may be at a point in your gut and that burn in your belly that says, I am just done. It is time to speak up. And the other person may say they're there, but in the heat of the moment, they may not be.
Because everybody doesn't have the same thing to lose. So that
Exactly.
was a good point that you said. It would be preferable if you go with somebody who has more invested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have people who have more pull than you, because a lot of times speaking truth to power, you tend to be speaking to someone who is either connected or who they themselves wield a great deal of power or influence. And it is hard to butt up against that. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude. It takes some patience. It takes some, this is just the right thing to do, and it's more important for me to say something than not, because it's not just about me. It's also about the team and the organization and everybody else I support and represent. But it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard. And the other thing that hit me around this good and necessary trouble is often we use that word troublemaker. Oh, she's seen it as a troublemaker. He's a troublemaker. And when did troublemaker become a problem? Because change, real change, starts by people making trouble. Good and necessary trouble. Public and loud trouble. We are having the conversations that we're having now because people are in the streets making trouble. Now, I'm not talking about looters and all that kind of stuff. Making trouble by filling the streets, by holding signs that called out the truth, by talking to people and saying, no, this is not okay. And here's the injustice, and here's the disparity, and here's why it's discriminatory. People made trouble, and they made it loudly.
And consistently.
And consistently. It is still going. And like I said, these moms lining up today, they are making trouble. But what's interesting to me about that word troublemaker is those who are labeled troublemakers are speaking truth to the power of the people who made the trouble in the first place. So they're calling the troublemaker the person who's trying to fix the trouble. But that label can be something that can be detrimental in your career development. They're a troublemaker. They're always stirring the pot, insert your scenario here. They never go along. They always have something else to say. They're always contrary. Now, again, if you're just contrary to be contrary, you need to know that and own that. But a lot of times when people put those labels on you, it's good to examine and go back and say, wait a minute. I was labeled a troublemaker, but why? What trouble was I creating? Was it good and necessary? Was it important not only for the health of the organization and for the people I support and the people I represent, but was it important for my health and my safety? Because if the answer to that is yes, you can call me a troublemaker all day long. But it's also important, if you're going to make trouble, that you are strategic in the trouble you make. I was listening to someone this morning, I think it was on the Today Show. And they were a representative of a bunch of people who were talking about schools opening back up. And this particular group is suing the state about opening. And I was listening to this person. So this gets to my point, as I was saying a minute ago about emotion. I was listening to this person. And as the interviewer was asking them questions about what do you think and what is the challenge and what do you believe needs to happen and all of this, the person really had a message they wanted to make sure they got out. So sometimes they answered the question, but they probably could have used a little more media training to figure out how to work it in, right? But more than that, the person was really, really emotional. Like it came across as yelling and angry. Well, I shouldn't say angry, because it wasn't angry, but it was very emotionally charged. And I had to examine, because as I listened to this, because I didn't look at the television, I just listened to it. I passed by later and saw who the person was. When you are speaking for a group of people and you're representing a group of people, while there may be a fight that you are battling, a fight that you are in, not every conversation is a fight. Not every conversation has to be adversarial. Not every conversation has to be so heated and so emotional. And I say this in particular to people of color, because we are already automatically seem to be fiery and emotional and taking it up to 5,000, right? And as I was listening to this person, I thought, you know what? I can't even really hear what he's saying because all I'm hearing is tone. All I'm hearing is the interviewer is really calm and cool and collected, and this person is just on fire. And they're not really answering the questions. Mm-hmm. But they're getting a little message across, right? They're getting their sound bites in, but just not in a way that's cohesive. And it made me think about what I just said, which is when you are in battle, you've got to really pay attention to your audience. Know your audience. Know who you're talking to. It is one thing if you are in the streets marching and protesting and you are yelling and getting people's attention or completely silent, right? Those things speak volumes. Mm-hmm. if you are on national television, or if you are sitting in a courtroom, if you are sitting in a boardroom, that audience is different. And that audience may or may not be able to hear your message through your tone and through your delivery. The way you deliver a message is just as important as the message itself, because the words can get lost in the delivery. The words can get lost in the delivery. So as you think about being a troublemaker, and I think everybody should be a troublemaker at some level, because that's the only way things change. Make sure that you are calm enough in making your trouble that people hear the issue and not hear the emotion.
I'm thinking about Michelle A. when she had a song called "Just Call Me Nicey."
Yes.
Because when you say about being a troublemaker,
Mm-hmm.
the strategic troublemaker can start trouble, but they don't really know it until after the trouble has been started.
Right.
Because when you look at people and you said if you get somebody to be the representative,
Mm-hmm.
you would not choose the one that's overly emotional,
Right.
and that can just run on a tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and then I look at people that they can't move from the church world to the corporate world, because
Mhm.
maybe you can be passionate and hoop and holler at
Right.
church, but when you're in a corporate setting,
Right.
you need to know the difference. But there are some people who would think you're being passive if you do a different approach.
Right.
But is a different approach required for different people?
You know, that is such a good question, Jerry, because especially for women, especially for people of color, that whole thing about selling out,
Mm-hmm.
assimilating, right? And that you can't be who you are, putting the mask on, imposter syndrome. It's such a complex issue. But here's the reality. Different behavior is required in different settings.
Mm-hmm.
You don't show up the same way to the ballet that you show up to a concert.
Mm-hmm.
You don't show up the same way to a board meeting with the chairman of the board as you do when you're showing up to your team meeting where y'all are just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't show up to the company party the same way you show up to your backyard barbecue. You can still be you. You can still do you.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand that there are some parts of you that are not fit for public consumption. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right? There are some things that are better suited for home and family, because that's the other piece. You know, I one of the mistakes I talk about is treating everybody in your business like family. We've talked about that before on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And your company, at the end of the day, unless it's a family-owned business, is not your family. There may be people within the organization that become as close to you as family. There may be relationships that you develop that are really close like family. But the company is the company.
Mm-hmm.
The company is the company. And so you do need to understand how you show up and where you need to soften or harden the way you show up. Because it is different. Different settings require different show up. You don't wear, well, now you do. But I remember when you went to the ballet when we were little, we were so excited. We'd come to Houston and my grandmother would take us to the ballet and we all dressed up. We had on long dresses and I mean, you dressed up to go to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are in some of everything, right? It's so casual.
Yeah.
So there are instances where it's just like having the appropriate dress. You want to have the appropriate attitude. You want to have the appropriate presence. They talk about executive presence. You want to have the appropriate carriage of your person for the situation you're in.
And you want to have your homework done. You want to make sure when you're saying it could be
Say that again.
researchable, because you want to make sure you come with your homework done. I'm thinking about the black female mayors around the city
Yes.
who are being attacked, and I see the difference between the way Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago is handling it and the way Bottoms is handling
Yes.
in Atlanta.
Yes.
Mayor Lightfoot takes a more aggressive approach,
Right.
but she may have to take a more aggressive
She in
approach.
Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, you know, like, maybe
Right.
don't do this. You got it
Right.
twisted, and you're
Yes.
not going to run over me where Mayor Bottoms may take a more calmer approach,
Right.
but she's making her point come across.
Exactly.
So they're saying the same thing, but they
Yes,
have
they
two
are.
different approaches
Yes.
because they're in two different situations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to be prepared to show up. It's like my grandfather used to say, you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you get
Yeah.
to the prince, right? And the same thing is you got to do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. So until you're running things, you want to do what you need to do to make sure you can get to be running things. And so if you are, if everything about you, and I'm not talking about issues around race, religion, all of those things that we know are diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges. If everything about you and the way you show up culturally, the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you deal with problems, the way you deal with other people, your the way you show up interpersonally is completely contrary to the organization you're in, nobody hears you. They don't hear you. All they do is hear, oh, here they go again. Every time they say something, it's completely off point. Every time they say something, they yell. They sit in meetings and they don't say anything, but then afterwards they go and talk to people about how bad it was. That's the stuff that people see. So really, I tell people who are just starting their career, one of the most important things you can do as you're starting out is find someone who is an advocate for you and a mentor for you, not a friend, a mentor for you.
Explain that again.
Yeah, because a mentor should not be your best friend.
Thank you.
A mentor should be someone who's going to tell you the truth, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. They're going to tell you the truth. They're not going to be nasty about it, but they're going to pull your coattails when your coattails need to be pulled, as the old folks say. But you want that person to be connected enough in the organization that the biggest conversations you have early are about how you show up, what the culture works, how those hidden networks are. That's the secret sauce. Yes, you need to know how the business is run and what makes money for the business and what levers they pull to make the best profit. But what you really need to know how to survive is all that hidden cultural, interpersonal stuff. So you need to find somebody who knows, and you need to be discerning because everybody who says they know doesn't know.
They don't know.
So you need to pay attention. You need to be discerning. Who is the person that's in every meeting? Who is the person that every time they speak, people listen? Who is the person that seems to know what's going on, seems to be the mover and shaker? That's the person you want on your team. That's the person you want to sit down with and have a cup of coffee and say, okay, here's what I observed. Did I get that wrong? What do I need to know? You want to learn very early on how those networks work. What does that culture look like? How do I maneuver here beyond just working my butt off and doing good work? Because you got to do that too. But the best work in the world will not save you from a cultural disaster.
Can I ask this?
Yes.
Is it true that some people can be labeled troublemaker because you can tell that they're going to be a troublemaker?
There are people who truly are troublemakers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the challenge is that word is spread so easily. There are troublemakers who are people who, like I said, are false advocates. They're all in the meeting. But when the meeting closes down, they're the ones that are chit-chatting behind the scene. No, that's not right. I can't believe they said that. You know, this is not going to work. That's a troublemaker, right? Those people who are sabotaging projects, the people who are intentionally giving false information, those are troublemakers, true troublemakers. And yes, people can be labeled true troublemakers fairly early, although the really good ones are pretty undercover. They're pretty passive aggressive, right? They're all shiny apple on the outside and wormy on the inside. So those are the folks you got to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So just like you were saying a minute ago, you know, the song Nicety and how you do it. Sometimes you got to get really good at being passive aggressive.
Right.
Really good at being passive aggressive. So that you can get your point across,
yes,
but you're also very clear about what the real deal is.
I was on a call the other day with the BBC organization, and they had different people on, and they were asking a question about, do you believe that you are an activist or a radio host? And the guy was saying, I was black before I was a radio host. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. But in the midst of saying that, every time they asked the question, it was such an angry, almost militant response.
All you heard was the
was this
emotion.
emotion. And And being in radio for so long, I know what they're asking. Basically, are you going to be able to be open
Yes.
to all views and opinions,
Yes.
even if it's what you won't normally subscribe to?
Yes.
Or are you going to be so stuck in who you were
Right.
before you ever took the job?
Right.
Okay, man, you sound like, because we do get labeled like the angry black female.
Yes.
And then
yes.
sometimes you will get labeled as the militant because
Yes.
it's not what you say, it's
Right.
the
It's how you
violence
say
of
it.
how you say
Yes.
it. Can be intimidating to some
Yes. And here's the reality of our society. People make snap judgments. I think I heard it was like the first 3 to 10 seconds. People make a judgment on you based on what they see in that first few seconds. The first few seconds. And so if every conversation you have with somebody is you're way up here, they don't hear you.
Yeah.
They don't hear you. And don't get me wrong, there's power in emotion. But sometimes what we do is give up our power because everything is emotional. Just like I said, if there are times when you are silent, that can speak volumes.
Yeah.
That can speak volumes. I remember I was doing a big project and I had been asking a particular group to do something for weeks. And every time we had a meeting, they're like, okay, well, this is done, and this is done, and we're still waiting on this. And I was kind of patient. But at the very last meeting, they came back on and I said, so where are we? Are we done? And, well, and so I said, so was I not clear? The deadline was this. These are the things we needed. And I thought I was clear on the criticality of having this done at some point, at this particular point, because of the impact it had on everything else. Was that not something that you guys understood? No, we're just having these issues. And then I said nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And I paused. And then I moved to the next group. The leader down in that site, who was not on this particular piece of project, but the leader on that site who did lead these 2 people, called me later on and I said, was I not clear? And she said, oh, no. No. You are extremely clear. You've been clear. And let's just say I saw a new fire lit under people after that call. Because, see, I didn't yell and scream. I didn't fuss and fight. I said what I needed to say. Here's the deadline. I need to understand what's going on. And then I moved on.
Mm-hmm.
I moved on. Because then you have now been put on notice. So when we lead everything we do with all of that emotion and all that angst and anger and irritation and frustration, which may be real. It may be real. People then begin to expect that every conversation they have with you, that's where they're going to go. And that is exhausting.
It is.
It's exhausting that every time you have a conversation with somebody, they are just on 5,000. It is tiring. And so people are going to be done with you. Or they're going to be like, oh, I got to go talk to her again today. Woo. That's not the reputation you want either. Because again, people don't hear your great ideas, see your great work, understand that you have a perspective that may actually be the answer. Because everything they've heard is just emotion.
When you said about making sure that you were clear, and
Mm-hmm.
they turned around and said that you were clear,
Mm-hmm.
and then they turned around and you said nothing else. To that matter, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I
Mm-hmm.
said the stipulations of what I want. And you can come back, and this is that and that. And they, well, I don't understand. And I said, okay, bullet points, give you this,
Right.
that, and that, and send me a written proposal,
Right.
and this and that. Well, can I just come see you? I just stopped talking because at this point, I maybe missed the point. Was I clear? Because I thinking I was going to say something wrong.
Right.
I just stopped responding because I was like, why did that happen like that? So what do you do with that when to you it's very explanatory.
Very clear.
It's very clear.
Well, this gets back to really knowing who you are too. Because see, I know me. And I know that there are times when I will have full-blown conversations with me. And so I may start a conversation with somebody else in the middle. And they're like, whoa, wait. And so what I tell people is, because I know I do that and I work really hard not to, but I know my brain also moves really fast.
Yeah.
You are not going to hurt my feelings if you say, wait, I need you to back up. I think I missed something. Just say it. I am not going to be offended. Where I'm going to be irritated and offended is if we come to a conclusion, I think we're on the same page, and then I don't get what I need. That's going to be the problem.
Right.
So let's just fix that in the beginning. So from my perspective, the Rutledge perspective, it is important to get that clarity up front. And so when I have those kind of conversations and people are still saying something that's contrary, I'm like, okay, well, let me pause a minute here, because I keep hearing you say XYZ, but that is not what I meant, nor what I want. So let me try again, because clearly I'm not being clear enough. So let me try it this way. And then I'll say, now repeat to me what you heard. Tell me what you heard. I want to make sure I'm clear. So I own it, because communication is two-way. If you didn't hear it, then maybe I didn't say it. So I'm going to try again. And I might try 3 times. 3rd time's a charm. After that, if it's still a problem, then that's telling me, yeah, this probably isn't going to work. And I need to do something else, because now I'm out of patience.
Right.
And usually my out of patience is I'm just done. I'm not yelling, screaming, fussing, fighting. I'm just through with that. As my grandmother used to say, I'm through with that. So you really need to understand, if you're getting ready to move forward, you're going to make waves, you're going to make good and necessary trouble. How are you going to do that in a way that the outcome of the trouble you're making is the outcome you desire? And not just, you don't do it in a way that you are just easily dismissed. Because especially when it's a sensitive topic or an emotional topic, it is something about diversity or equity or inclusion or race or pay or any of those kind of things, that can be pretty sensitive. If you're in an organization that's been around a long time, if you're going after one of those sacred cows, that's going to be sensitive. If you're going after that person, not because of the person, but because their behavior is unacceptable and they've been doing that for 40 years, that's going to be a challenge. So how you do that in a way that gets your point across and comes with some kind of solution that people might be able to understand is critical. So that you are not ignored or dismissed, or worse yet, put yourself in a position where you now have a reputation of an ineffective troublemaker. You're just stirring the pot. You're just making waves. You're just contrary. You said UK earlier. Do we have the UK on today too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, UK. I know we said hello to Germany, right?
Yeah.
We didn't say hello to UK. Thank you for joining. So I think we're doing pretty good on time. So what I would love y'all to do this, by the way, to tell me on either Jerry's page, the KCOH radio page, my page, what kind of good and necessary trouble are you making this week? I just want to know. And how did it go? Did you make a plan? Not only your original plan, but your plan B. And how did it turn out? And what'd you learn? Because by us having those conversations, then we help everyone else who is having to try to figure out how to make trouble too. Because at some point, we're all going to have to make trouble.
Because if you don't, it can be real dangerous. When you're talking about this, I'm thinking about what's happening in the current affairs of the world right now. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking about in Florida, where the numbers are extremely high, and the governor still refuses to make an order.
Right.
And the president turns around and he tweets a picture of him wearing a mask. So you're trying to save face with the guy that basically did the opposite of what he's telling you guys not to do. So is that a time to start saying, wait a minute, what are we doing? I was going to follow you.
But I think that's what we're starting to see. People are really starting to, I had this conversation with somebody the other day. The majority middle folks, like if you look at a bell curve, right? Mm-hmm. The majority of folks are in the middle. The people we hear from all the time are the folks on the edges. Those are the ones that are the loudest. Those are the ones that are making the most waves. And those are the ones that are never going to agree. Never, ever, ever, never. Mm. They're not gonna. And so the people in the middle get tired of all that mess. They get tired of the rhetoric. They're the people who are like, oh, I just got to get off Facebook for about 3 months because I can't. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we just get tired of the crazy. But I think what we're seeing and what's giving me hope is all the people in the middle are saying, this is ridiculous.
This is ridiculous, yeah.
This is ridiculous. We need to be getting facts. We need to be following the truth. We need to make conscious decisions based on real information and not listen to all this craziness that is sometimes politically motivated, sometimes motivated by money or power or whatever. Those of us who are in the middle that can think, because we all have the opportunity to think and to read and to educate ourselves, we need to get involved in the conversation now, because there needs to be some kind of reasonableness reinserted into all this stuff that's going on. And so I think that's what we're starting to see is all of these covers are being revealed, right? This whole, I took this test and I'm a genius, and somebody else came out the other day and said, that test was meant to be easy.
Right.
I'm assuming so if you have to look at a picture and say, is that an elephant or a giraffe? I'm just saying. That doesn't seem very difficult to me.
Because now it really isn't almost, it's not about the red or the blue. It's about, do you see this as off? And when are we going to step up and say inside? I'm not talking about just us that's watching on television or on social media. I'm talking about the inside people.
Yes.
When do you finally say, this is a sinking ship? Do I go down with the ship?
And I think there's probably more of that going on than we know. I believe there's more of that going on than we know. Because we also have not seen, if you stick kind of on the political arena, at least in my knowledge, and maybe I just wasn't paying as much attention, but I don't know that I've ever seen a period of time where there was more stuff leaked out of an administration as we've seen with this administration.
Yeah.
And most of the leak going, this is crazy, right? Leaked anonymously, but just, this is not good. And so I think as we look at how we're going to make this good and necessary trouble, that's what people are doing. That's why people are speaking up. That's what the middle is saying. We don't have to agree. We don't have to have the same philosophy. We can be conservative. We can be liberal. We can be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. We can be all of that kind of stuff. And we can still have decent conversations and move towards resolution. That's what we can do. It is possible. It was done for generations. It is possible. And we can address these heavy, heavy systemic issues, but we got to be willing to do it. We got to be willing to speak truth to power. We got to be willing to call ourselves on our own crap and own it, right? And be willing to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
I want to make this necessary point. This young lady, her name is Nella.
Hi, Nella.
And she, I watched her on Facebook, and she started a snack business where she's selling snacks.
Is she in Houston?
She's in Houston.
Oh, okay.
You training. She's selling snacks.
Yeah, my trainer didn't hit that.
She's selling snacks, but this is what she's saying. She said, I'm changing my marketing strategy to get my community neighborhood involved in my new business. I didn't want to make trouble, but I've learned now that if I will become a black-owned chain grocery store owner, I must become necessary at this level. Maybe off topic, but this is helping me. But that makes sense because,
absolutely.
I don't know, you're from East Texas, right?
West Texas, yeah.
But, remember the Cool Cup lady and all
that?
Oh,
people?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so this is where she's kind of got started.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, let's say you're in a community that you can't go to the local store because there's no stores there.
Right.
And now she becomes relevant because people say, I don't need to go to the...
You're making trouble. You're stirring it up.
You're stirring it up.
Mm-hmm.
So...
No, I think that's perfect. And it is absolutely on point. When we talk about disturbing and making trouble and being disruptors, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Stirring up trouble isn't just one kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Stirring up trouble, like there's a book called This is Marketing by Seth Godin. And one of the things that he says is that seems like it's not right because, again, to her point, you're like maybe alienating people or maybe stirring up trouble. He says if you're starting a business, you want to get your niche as small as possible. You want to be as narrow as possible. So if what you want to do is you want to sell healthy snacks in Third Ward, then you sell healthy snacks in Third Ward. That's what you do. You are the Third Ward healthy snack lady, and that's okay. And other people may be saying, well, wait a minute, what about Fifth Ward? And what about Meyerland? And you're just alienating people. Well, yeah. But you're building the market that you know is best to serve. And then word of mouth gets out, and it's going to be so good that people who are not in Third Ward are going to be like, oh, we need to go see that woman in Third Ward because, see, now everybody's talking about it. So my desire overcomes my offense.
Yeah.
So it is right on point. Thank you. It is right on point. making trouble is also about disrupting. That's what disruptors do. They make trouble.
But again, we go back to this. That's when you may have to make sure all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed.
Yes.
Because when you make trouble, you will wake up those that want to make trouble for you.
Yes.
So you got to make sure your business is in order.
Absolutely.
In order to do that, because we prepare for expansion, but with expansion comes a lot of attacks.
You get more visibility.
Yeah, more
People
visibility.
are just like crabs. Once somebody gets out, somebody's trying to pull them back down, right? So you've always got to be prepared. And as they say, if you've not been sued, you're not in business.
Oh, but you know what I like too? I want to go back to what she said about she wants to have a black-owned chain grocery store, because I've been doing a spotlight for business owners.
Yes.
That I'm gonna have on the show as well. But I said, I wonder, is there a black-owned grocery store here? Because what she said is, I want to be a black-owned chain grocery store, but she started with selling snacks. Somebody would say, I want to have a black-owned grocery store, but they don't get started because they're looking at the big elephant before
Start
they start
somewhere.
Yeah, that's good.
Just got to start, you know. What is it? The world, your journey starts with a single step or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep starting, you know, and people will, there will be people who support you and pump you up, and there will be people like, oh, I don't know why you're going to do that. Grocery stores don't make any money. Why would you do that? Because your purpose is bigger.
I also saw she had some employees. Just some little kids working with her.
Oh yeah.
And they were groomed and they were doing what they needed to do.
Good.
I think about Chick-fil-A though.
Yeah.
Because you're human resources.
Yeah.
You should spend a lot of time on training your staff.
Absolutely.
People, so you can be known for something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't do Chick-fil-A, but they do service well. They do service well. They got some issues other places, but they do service
do?
well. Yeah, I can't.
What they do?
They're not.
Tell me.
They have their position on LGBTQ and other issues is contrary to mine, so I cannot support them.
Oh, okay.
They are, and contraception and all that kind of stuff. I just cannot.
Oh.
And who they support and how they support. So I don't support them with my dollars.
And that's the power we have.
That's the
We can
power
choose.
we have. We can choose. That means I don't get that little sandwich and those waffle fries, which are actually really good when I was eating Chick-fil-A. But it's worth it for me, in my heart. So, with that, I love you guys. Thank you again, Germany, UK, St. Louis, Houston, Odessa, Austin, and I'm missing some people here. And Longview. Thank y'all for tuning in. Talk It Out Tuesday with Jerry P. Beasley. Support me here on KCOH Radio, The Boost. I am Laurel. Follow me if you like. Let me know if you need me. Lead 2020. Text Lead 2020 to 474747. And I got your back. We'll see you next week.
Thank you guys.